Hello everybody and welcome back to another amazing video from yours truly. Today I wanted to go ahead and record a video from Legal Mindset. Now this video is titled about the Emiru's and Mizkif, the lawsuit that's going on. And I thought, why not go ahead and cover the more of it, get a little bit more educated on the topic, just because I'm not really in the know about what's truly going on. So yeah, I want to go ahead and just jump into this and take a look at what's happening, get more educated on the topic.
Emiru has filed her motion to dismiss in the case against Mizkif, which also involves Asmongold. We're going to get into all the parties today, particularly Emiru's defense and the little
It involves Asmongold? I didn't know that. Wow. Okay.
chink in her armor, which might mess up her motion to dismiss. Of course, this is the Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney. This is a Fast Facts video, the quick and dirty version of the latest in legal news. So in case you've been hiding under a rock, we've got the plaintiff here, Mizkif, who filed a defamation lawsuit against Asmongold, Emiru, OTK, and Mythic. And lately, there's been a clip trending around of him.
I didn't know it involved this whole group of people. I genuinely didn't know that, but that's interesting.
In a bit of an emotional state.
And she waits 4.5 months to stall this out so no one cares anymore. And her response is that. Like, are you kidding me? And no one cares. No one cares. Like, no one wants to listen. It's so unfair.
I covered this before. I just, regardless of the situation being as bad as it is, which, hey, look, I understand. I get it, right? I don't think the internet's really the place to be doing all this,
They go up my throat for cheese clips and say I'm an abuser. And that's her response. Her response is literally that it's her emotional version of it. Are you kidding me?
So we're going to get into that today and what he's talking about.
Yes, let's
and
do
the
it.
little
Let's get into
issues we have with Emiru's defense. Then we, of course, have Emiru over here, who's the defendant. And she seemed from the beginning pretty prepared for litigation, knowing that litigation was going to come.
I would not be surprised if he tries to sue me for the stream that I did today and for coming out about him. Not because he thinks that he would win, but for PR reasons, like a slap lawsuit. It'd be interesting if that happened, and I wouldn't be opposed to people finding out more of the truth and things that I didn't even talk about today and what else he's been lying about. And I'm sure there's also plenty of things that even I don't know about.
So it seems like from the beginning, Emiru was prepared for a lawsuit, and part of a lawsuit is going through the steps, is going through the motions. So this is yet another part of the lawsuit that we have to get through. And of course, let's not forget Asmongold, who's part of this, and I'm going to reflect upon his defense in light of Emiru as we get into the facts here. So let's go with our opening statements. So Mizkif filed this defamation claim and other claims against OTK, Asmongold, Mythic, and Emiru. All evidence involves statements on Mizkif and Emiru's relationship. So it's all stuff that involves their relationship and how their relationship went down.
Yeah, that's why I'm so confused as far as why Asmongold is part of it, because from what I understood, it was just about the relationship and the abuse that was happening in it. But interesting. Okay.
Comments and admissions were made by Mizkif himself, although some of the stuff and evidence has been submitted are Emiru's comments, and obviously her initial statement is part of the evidence. But both now procedurally, Asmongold and Emiru have filed motions to dismiss. And it's very important to get into what that exactly means. So a motion to dismiss, and you can see right here the filing that was just filed by Emiru. That is under the federal rules because Mizkif perhaps wisely got this in a federal court to avoid some procedural Texas law, which would make his claim even more difficult, almost impossible. You've got the federal rule 12b6 for failure to state a claim. This is a pre-trial motion, so it's before you get all witnesses called, it's before depositions, it's before a lot of the discovery of the actual case itself, and it only examines the legal sufficiency of the plaintiff Mizkif's claims. The one thing is, when you're looking at this and looking at a motion to dismiss, you do have to interpret all facts in favor of Mizkif. Now, of course, he has to specifically state those facts. Those have to be things that are backed up by evidence, by certain amount of evidence. And you also have to ignore legal conclusions or just statements of the elements. So if he's just going through there saying, well, these are the elements of the crime, and I think she did the elements of the crime, that's not enough. You've got to back that up by saying, okay.
Yeah, with defamation lawsuits, from my understanding, they're pretty hard to actually win just because there's so much you have to actually prove. So, I mean, it can be pretty difficult for him to actually win the case, just because, I mean, defamation it's pretty hard to prove. So
here are facts that support that, right? And then those facts can be interpreted in favor of Mizkif. And an important note here is Mizkif is trying to amend his complaint to add facts that the first version of his complaint didn't have. And both of them, Asmongold and Emiru, are trying to prevent that. Emiru goes into a little bit more detail with her comments on why that should be prevented. But Mizkif did not do a good job of including a lot of facts in his initial complaint, which is why it was.
is it because maybe he doesn't have that many? You know, like, I understand, you know, when it comes to like legal stuff, it could be really complex and complicated, but knowing that he was going into a defamation lawsuit to begin with, I would think he'd be a little bit more prepared, but maybe not.
Absolutely so laugh-worthy. But there may be an issue here, a very, very specific issue here with Emiru's motion to dismiss. So the issue is, in Texas, it's defamation per se to accuse someone of a crime or imputations of serious sexual misconduct. And SA, right, you see it right there, is a felony which falls under both categories. So it's both a crime and an imputation of serious sexual misconduct. So
that's crazy. I didn't know. I mean, obviously, sexual assault isn't something that should be taken lightly, but a felony is okay. I didn't know Texas was like that. I don't know if it's like that everywhere. Maybe it is. It should be. Hey.
Both of those things are defamation per se. So if you have that information out there, you would interpret that, okay, that's defamatory. And of course, just for those that don't know, the crime of SA generally requires some sort of physical contact, right? So that's something that's going to be required. And as of yet, we do not have any injunction or.
That's why some of those things are a little difficult to prove, just because how do you gather that evidence of that actually occurred, you know? It's by the way, this face is this frame is a little diabolical.
Criminal complaint against Mizkif that's been filed for SA. But which brings us to the problem. The problem is, looking at Emiru's statements in the transcript, she used the language of SA at least 3 times during her main speech, which you can go through, and these are timestamps from the transcript, which was
her statement. Today I'm finally going to be opening up about the psychological and domestic abuse, stalking and harassment, sexual assault, and threats of blackmail that Mizkif has done towards me, and some of these issues which are still ongoing. I'm so grateful for how things are now. It was very difficult, but I'm very proud of myself for making the choices that I did and ended up where I am now. And yeah, that's my story of dealing with abuse, psychological and domestic abuse, sexual assault, stalking, being threatened on. Oh, okay. Interesting. So it's essentially alleging stalking, abuse, right? Domestic abuse, sexual assault. Okay. I mean, they're serious allegations that definitely can ruin someone's life.
Submitted to the court. We can read that today. Today, I'm finally going to be opening up about the psychological and domestic abuse, stalking and harassment, sexual assault, and threats of blackmail that Mizkif has done towards me, and some of these issues which are ongoing. That's number 1.
I just make it very, very clear too. This video is more about me just getting educated on the situation, right? And those maybe that don't also know the full extent of everything, and what the case is really going on about. Because I mean, obviously, you can make jokes and have fun at Mizkif's expense, like we all can, right? But I think it's important to also know the facts of the situation and fully understanding, the validity of the arguments here. So, yeah.
Number two, she opens up by saying, but because of the past incidents during like other fights and times I would try to separate myself from him, past incidents during those times of him manipulating me into staying close with him and giving him more chances, sexually assaulting me, the abuse, and just generally not being a very nice person. And then last but not least, I'm so grateful for how things are now. It was very difficult, but I'm very proud of myself for making the choices that I did to end up where I am now. And yeah, that's my story of dealing with psychological and domestic abuse, sexual assault, stalking, and being threatened on, if you know I ever talked about it. So there you go. You see the instance of her bringing that up. And this was definitely something that Emiru's lawyers knew that Mizkif was going to bring up because of that law, because of the defamation per se. And you do have this statement here. So this statement here seems to be the thing we have in the record that would go towards that, or towards her interpretation of that, which is the statement: we cuddled for about 30 minutes and started to kiss. She said that she was okay with this on her stream, and I started to advance to the next stage because I thought that's what she wanted. She yelped, and I immediately sprung up and was scared if I did anything wrong or did something or did wrong in general. I got scared and left the house. I apologize if that made Emmy uncomfortable for me not saying sorry, and I wish I had said sorry back then. So that was the incident, which perhaps she was interpreting that. It's the one we have from the record. Of course, this is Mizkif's own statement. Now, Emiru's defense here, and this is the position she filed in this recent filing, is that under Texas law, even a verifiably false statement is not defamation if the context reveals the statement was a reflection of an opinion, not a statement of fact. So they're trying to lean on the fact that saying, hey, this was more of an opinion than a statement of fact. Here, within the context of the entire 90-minute live stream, it is clear that Emiru was telling her own emotional truth, explaining how their relationship.
So Texas law has long held that even a verifiably false statement is not defamation in the context of the statement reveals that the statement was merely a reflection of an opinion, not a statement of fact. How can that be so, right? If I hold the opinion that I don't know, a business is serving bad food, right? Unhealthy food. And I go and broadcast that to the whole internet and the world and ends up getting, going viral. And that business ends up just not being able to stay open because of all the bad publicity. Wouldn't that be some kind of defamation? Right? I mean, that would definitely have to be some, research as far as this case and what that was really talking about. I wonder if he's going to cover if that's a good argument or not, because that seems very odd.
Came to an end and the struggles Emiru endured during their relationship. The live stream was spontaneous, unedited, unscripted, and underscoring that Emiru was not delivering a rehearsed narrative, but instead was speaking openly and vulnerably.
I mean, wouldn't people be able to use that argument in the case that, they were okay with it, but in their opinion after the fact, they felt that, this was assault, right? That doesn't make sense to me.
In the moment, her truth as she experienced it, like the daughter in Benson, a Texas case that they cite. Emiru's allegedly defamatory statements were either non-actionable elements of opinion or mere opinions masquerading as fact. And then they go on to point out, because they know this is coming, that Mizkif will focus on Emiru's use of the term SA, which I'm going to stop there and just say very clearly, if she had not used that term, we wouldn't even be here today. This wouldn't be an argument. There would be a full, strong case for that motion to dismiss. But using that terminology is really what got her in that position. So without a doubt, without use of those words, there would be no position for Mizkif to hang his hat on here based on his own statements of his behavior. Let's continue. and argue that Emiru's statements are necessarily defamatory because they include the same term. However, in comparison to Benson, once again, a Texas case they're relying on, Emiru described in detail the exact nature of his assault against her. Bizarrely, this one sentence that Mizkif actually quotes in the first amended complaint he started kissing me in my face and I let him do it, and then suddenly he tried to climb on top of me and aggressively shoved his hand down my pants, and I screamed, and when I screamed, he jumped off me like a cat. Taking the whole context of the statement into account, as the court is required to do, it's very different than the stepfather and Benson. Emiru describes exactly what happened to her, and although she defines it as SA, a reasonable viewer would unquestionably understand that that term is her own description of what happened to her. The viewer is not left to guess as to the nature of assault based solely on the term SA, which focused on the fact that daughter did not actually describe the alleged assault. Just like in Benson, Emiru's statements are not actionable as defamation because they show her personal viewpoint, i.e. her own emotional truth, and not purported fact. So that's their position as to that specific thing. And that is a very, very precarious position at the point of a motion to dismiss, where you're getting into, hey, does this meet the legal standard? And when you're taking those presumptions, once again, the presumptions in favor of Mizkif in terms of the factual allegations. Understanding, though, that Mizkif did a poor job in his complaint of including details and spotting out things, and that's what he's probably trying to clean up, him and his lawyer trying to clean up and add to make sure that they perhaps survive a motion to dismiss. But this is their defense. So what do we look at? Well, in defamation in general, we're going to look at this how a reasonable person would look at this. So overall in the context, right, the fact finder, right, the jury at a certain point, right, earlier on, we can look for summary judgment and motion to dismiss. These are going to
I mean, how it looks like to me right now, just kind of on the surface of everything, in what I can understand so far, is that people would definitely agree with Mizkif probably when it comes to the argument of, hey, would that be perceived as, sexual assault when he backed away, when, the first signs of her not actually being okay with it, was him to leave, right? So, yeah.
be the judge is going to be making the decisions, but you're going to be looking from a reasonable person's standard. And Emiru's problem, or fundamental problem, is that she repeated those words and also used them in the context of other crimes, and that would leave an implication that it was the criminal definition, right? And even if it wasn't, once again, we go back to Texas law, there's the imputation of serious sexual misconduct, which can also be defamation per se. However, here's the problem for Mizkif, and this is not just a clear thing where Mizkif is at the complete advantage. They're public figures, and the burden is on Mizkif to prove that Emiru did this with malice. So that is a
So this would be a different story if they weren't public figures, I guess.
higher standard. So essentially, Mizkif needs to prove that Emiru knew that this didn't fit the definition of SA and said it anyway. Said, I know he didn't do this. I knew what that was. I said it maliciously. And he's got to prove that by clear and convincing evidence, which is a higher bar at the civil level. Usually it's preponderance of the evidence, which is a lower standard. It's got to meet a clear and convincing standard. That's very difficult for anybody to hit as a public figure, and going up to hit that clear and convincing standard. So Mizkif doesn't have an easy ride here. Now, Asmongold. Let's talk about Asmongold real quick. Does any of this change what Asmongold has, or his motion to dismiss? No, it does not alter that at all, because
Asmongold never used the term sexual assault in any of his statements. Unlike Emiru, his content was a reaction, mostly based on Mizkif's self-statements. No charge on the expedited outcome. Oh my goodness, I can't read. No change on the expected outcome for Asmongold based on Emiru's defense.
Asmongold never used that.
So I guess it's the defamation lawsuit. Maybe there's two lawsuits possibly going on here when it comes to the whole situation, as far as the allegations against Mizkif being, abusive and all this other stuff, and Mizkif suing as far as this defamation. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay.
term in any of his statements. So he doesn't have that same risk of defamation per se. Unlike Emiru, most of his content was a reaction, and mostly he was just going straight up on what Mizkif was saying. Now, Emiru was telling her original story. That was kind of the original telling of the story.
I mean, obviously, Asmongold was probably, I would say he was fairly close to the whole group, them being part of, I think it was called OTK or something. What kind of surprises me is that he is one of the only ones as part of this lawsuit. I mean, there's a lot of people online talking about him in the whole situation, so it's like, why just Asmongold, I guess? But okay.
So there's nothing to react to at the beginning of the story, obviously. So Asmon was in a different position and could be more careful. But I wouldn't change any expected outcome for Asmongold based on Emiru's defense. So let's go to the judgment. So in my judgment, Asmongold can still likely gain a dismissal. I think he has very good grounds for that, and nothing about Emiru's defense changes his chances from being good with a dismissal. However, Emiru is in a difficult position, a much more difficult position than Asmongold comparatively, because she repeatedly used that word. And the emotional truth argument, right? And mind you, this is not trial yet. This is not even summary judgment, which is a later stage. It's not the strongest argument for a motion to dismiss. So I could see Emiru losing a motion to dismiss and then proceeding with the trial. And in the clip we watched in the beginning of this video, you saw how Emiru appears prepared for trial, prepared to go to discovery, prepared to have things gone out, because she seems to think and seems to preposition that there's more evidence that's going to make Mizkif look bad that hasn't even come out yet. So that would be coming out as part of the discovery process and as part of a potential trial even. Now, Mizkif still has that super high bar as a public figure to show malice, but at this point, if you're weighing all the factors, let's say that Emiru was to lose a motion to dismiss, right, and she was not to be granted that motion to dismiss, well, then obviously Emiru and Mizkif have a better chance of settling, right? That would be a point at which, if they both desired to, they could settle, and that would be more successful than Asmongold, who's likely to get out of this on a motion to dismiss. But once again, this case is not set anywhere. This also is set in Texas, which has that pretty high procedural, pretty high bars when it comes to defamation cases. And also the county might not be friendly to Mizkif. So there's a lot of things that are going on right now that still stand against Mizkif. But this might be a chink in this one step by Emiru. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.
Yes, indeed. Wow. Okay. Interesting situation going on, right? I definitely didn't know it was that complex, which I'm glad I watched this video. And, you know, I mean, if you took anything away from this, please go ahead and leave it in the comments. I'm interested to see what you guys think about the situation. Obviously, like I said, you know, it's easy to clown on Mizkif for, you know, all the things he does, all the funny things he does. Which, don't get me wrong, I made a previous video about this situation too, not fully knowing everything, but it is interesting to know that Asmongold and OTK is part of this whole situation, which I did not know that. But yeah, it's definitely a crazy one. I hope justice works out. I definitely will be following this story, just because I think it's pretty wild. So anyways, everybody, thank you for watching this. If you did make it to the end, please go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and we'll be talking later. Bye bye.